Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. We are working on this Stern Wildfire pinball machine, and we figured we were about to touch up the playfield a little bit with some paint. We know people like those videos, so we figured we would film a little bit of it to show you kind of how we do it, and you can see the before and after. Now, we have already removed everything from the playfield because it basically needed to be serviced, touched up a little bit, and then we needed to get down to where we can paint it. So we've got a lot of the parts of it over here on this playfield just out of the way. So this is the condition that we're starting in. I don't think we're going to do anything on the apron. I think there's a decal you can order for it. We might look into getting that, but it's kind of rough too, right? But the actual playfield, this is actually a really fun game, Stern's Wildfire. The actual playfield looks pretty good. Got a little bit of problems there around those two advanced bonus holes where the orange is. Might have to do something about that. And then again here in the middle where the yellow is. Then over here where the drop targets are, it's kind of rough. Okay. And then the worst is right here. You can see that big quarter-size spot missing there. So we're going to have to try to draw some of this back in and redo it, get it looking good. So since we've got it down to the bare wood, we took a magic eraser, cleaned it, basically got it as clean as we can get it, took the old wax off of it basically by doing that. And we're to the point where we can touch some stuff up. So we're going to see if we can get this looking better. The gentleman that owns this, he really likes this machine. And it is a fun machine. It's completely working. Everything's cool. But the playfield is starting to show some wear. And we're going to try to stop that in its tracks and get it looking a little better. So the first thing I usually do is I take a black, I do everything in acrylic so that we can clear coat over it easily. And if we mess up, we can just take it right back off. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a black acrylic paint pen, not a Sharpie, a black acrylic paint pen, and I'm going to redraw in some of the lines that are missing. Like, for instance, whatever is going on here. I don't know what that's even supposed to look like. But luckily, the art isn't ridiculously complicated, so I can probably just kind of freehand draw that back in how it's supposed to look. That's what we're going to try at least. And then draw some of these lines back in. There is a black line going around each one of these colors. And the reason that I do it like that first is because basically when you do that, you're turning it into a big coloring book. So you can tell where one color starts, one color stops, and it just makes it easier to touch up. Down here, there isn't a circle around them. I'll look online at examples of other people's machines and see if they originally had a black circle around it like the inserts do. So maybe maybe there's supposed to be a black circle there, but I don't believe it is. That's probably just orange all the way up to the button. Right? But you can just see the wear from all the years. I'm not going to touch up every little flaw on the playfield because whenever I clear coat it, I use just a spray paint can of clear. Just Krylon clear coat, and so I want to be able to just do a few spots and not have to worry about repainting the entire playfield because it's a lot more work. You have to take everything off the playfield. You have to get it even the entire way. It's a lot easier if you just work on one little area, spray a little clear on that, and then move on to the next area. So that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying not to spend a ton of time on it, but make it look much more presentable. Luckily, it's kind of a busy playfield anyway. If it was all one color and you had a whole bunch of wear right here, it'd be hard to match that to where you couldn't see it, right? So we're basically just trying to touch up the areas that are really bad, make them look, hopefully, so similar to the original that you can't even tell that we touched it up at a glance. Put some clear coat on it so it doesn't get any worse, and then roll on from there. So, okay, so let me get my black acrylic paint pen, and we'll draw some of the stuff back in. Okay, folks, so we just quickly drew some of the lines back in here and drew the little guy back in up there. His arm and his cape was messed up a little bit. I just looked at a picture online of somebody else's that wasn't worn as bad to see how that was supposed to look. If you're a little bit off, it's no big deal. It's just a little line drawing. Nobody's ever going to know that the angle of the guy's arm is slightly different or something. You know, you just got to have the guts to go ahead and draw it back in, right? So we drew it back in. I think the first color that we're going to replace is that burgundy, that wine color. What would that be called? That's maybe a plum. So it's only used in a few spots. It's right here up against this rollover button. Now what I did was I looked online to try to see how that originally looked. Was there a black line around that? And it appears, I couldn't find anybody's that wasn't worn, but if you look really close at the FYRE and things like that, you can figure out what they did. And there's one little clue up here on the playfield. I'll show you how it originally would have looked. Look at this. Look at the left and above this rollover button. See how it's bare right there? So they designed it like that. So not all of that is wear. Some of that was actually designed in. So we just need to straighten it up a little bit. See to the left of it? See the bare wood there? See how the color is silk screened in? So some of this is wear, but a lot of that was how it was originally made. Same on this one. To the left of it, you can see. I think the registration was probably off just a little bit whenever they silk screened it. And the same thing here. So I'm going to try to make a circle that looks a little more evenly distributed around it, but we're not going to paint all the way up to the actual button. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do though is I think this plum kind of color. Here's the acrylic paint pens I use, the little cheap ones, and they are water-based. The reason you want that is because you can just wash them off if you screw it up, right? We have these on our website, just a link to them on Amazon. Go to lionsarcade.com. We have a parts page on there that has links to a bunch of the paint and stuff that we use whenever we do repairs. If you're looking for any or you want to check it out, just go check out our website. And if you go and buy any of that and it takes you to Amazon, it will it gives us a tip for sending you there. So we appreciate everybody that's been doing that. Some people use one of our links and then they buy like expensive stuff like garage door openers and refrigerators and stuff. And we get a piece of that too. So we appreciate everybody that's been doing that. Okay, so yeah, I think that burgundy will add back in. Let me grab some of those. I've got a whole bunch of different colors. I've probably got one rare right out of the bottle. It'll be a pretty close match to that. Okay, so I keep all kinds of this acrylic paint. These are like 80 cents or $1 a piece, right? So I keep all kinds of different ones because I do this all the time. For you, it might be better to go to the store and buy specific ones, you know, but I just keep a whole ton of them in. Now, on these older playfields, the colors that they silkscreen, of course, are the same all over the playfield. On the more modern games, this won't really work because it's more printed on there instead of silkscreen. So if you get a color, it'll appear all over the playfield. So this purple or burgundy or whatever it is the same down here as it is everywhere else, right? So this is razzleberry. This thing is too light, right? So if we're comparing how it looks to there, it's nowhere close. Okay, now this is alizarin crimson. All right. Well, that's pretty close, isn't it? A little bit off, but it dries a little darker. So that one's worth thinking about. Cranberry wine. Ooh. Boy, that's pretty close, isn't it? I think. Cranberry wine. Let's think about that one. Mulberry. It's a little too purple. Deep burgundy. pretty close. But a little bit too red. And poetic plum. Too purple. Right. Okay, so in my opinion, this cranberry wine is pretty close. Look at that. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of it and do a little test spot. Now, if it's a little off, like let's say it's not quite purple enough, well, you can take one of these ones that's a little more purple and mix in with it, and it'll kind of shift it that way, you know. So you kind of have to mix with it. But if you can help it, it's better to use them right out of the bottle without mixing them, because then it's easier to reproduce, right? So I'll do a little test spot, and we'll see how close it really is. Okay, so right out of the bottle, it's a little bit too burgundy. Like it's a little bit, I mean, it's a little bit too red. See, it's just too dark, and it needs to be a little more purple than red. Okay, so I took the plum, or whatever it's called, the mulberry. I took the mulberry, which is pretty purple, and mixed it with that one. And then I have taken a little bit of that and painted it right there, just on top of the other paint. Just gotta let the light hit it. And it's pretty much a dead match. So I just mixed a couple of them together to get it a little more close, right? So over here, I painted in just a little bit there. You can see it's a pretty good match. Just testing it. Over here, this is when it's too burgundy. That one's too burgundy, and this is the new mix. It's a pretty good match. Okay. So now that I've got a decent match, I'm just going to paint the pieces that need repainted on that, and we'll move on to the next color. So while you've got it out, you know, do the places that you're going to do. But I'm not going to paint every little nick on every little piece of this. We'll call it, what'd they call it? Cranberry. I'm not going to paint every little piece of this cranberry. I'm just doing the spots that are really screwed up. So that it saves the areas that I'm working on, so I don't have to do the entire playfield. You know, we don't mind if it has a little bit of wear on it. It doesn't have to look perfect. It's an old game, but you want it to look better than it does. Okay, so we're up to the white area. Now the white is very yellowed over the years. Basically everything on the playfield is yellowed, but you really notice it on the white. So here is warm white, which is not your brightest white in the first place. As you can see, it's much too white for the white on the playfield. However, it kind of almost matches the plastic on the playfield that hasn't yellowed as much, right? Snow titanium white. Not even close. White wash. Not even close, right? So, essentially, the color we usually use is light buttermilk, which is not white at all. It's kind of more yellow. But look, even it is not yellow enough. Right? So then what we always mix it with is regular buttermilk, which is too yellow. Maybe, depending on the place, I guess. Right? So, mix a little bit of that together, and I repainted the white. Now, since it was worn so heavily there on that area, I just repainted the whole part that's white. And we'll go back with the black and touch up all the lines and all of that. But that color is probably slightly different than this color, and it kind of fades unevenly too, which messes you up. But that color is probably slightly different than this color, but your eye won't really notice it since I painted the whole thing. If there is a spot where it's right next to the white, though, and you stop, you'll notice that it's a little bit off. So I also did the guy's arm there. You can see how I did the top part, but I didn't do the bottom part. So you can see that it's a little bit different. But again, we're analyzing it with an up-close eye. Most people, when they play this thing, they're not going to look at that. They'll look up there and go, oh, look, there's a little guy. What's he doing? Oh, he's wrecked his chariot and he's been flipped off. Right? You're not going to go, I don't know. The top of his arm's slightly different than the bottom of his arm. Most people are never going to figure that out. So, we're getting there. So, not only am I going to paint the white that we need to touch up, but I'm also going to paint the yellow that we need to touch up. Like, so the areas around the I and the Y there that need touched up, I'm going to go ahead and paint white, because you basically have to primer yellow, or it ends up taking like 15 coats of yellow. It doesn't have much pigment in it. It's so light that to hide the wood grain color under it, you need to primer it. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the white on that as well. The same exact white that I mixed for the white next to it there that I've already put on, just to make it where it'll take the yellow a little better. So I've got that. I need to touch up this rollover button here just a little bit, but I'm going to leave most of that because that's how it was actually designed. So, all right, so I'll work on that a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next color. Okay, so I had orange called Canyon Orange out of the bottle that was a pretty close match, and so I've painted around that line, that circle, and just left a little bare circle around it, which appears to be how they originally had it. Okay. And then the yellow, I had a yellow called Cadmium Yellow that seems to be a pretty good match, so I repainted the whole yellow arrow. The area there that I put primer on around the I and the Y, it only took one coat after I had the white primer on it, so that looked pretty good. Also some Canyon Orange up here. Pretty good blend. Also, there was an area here where it was just kind of streaked, so I just kind of brushed in a little bit there. Doesn't look perfect, but it looks pretty good. And our gladiator, or our centurion, or whatever they're called, our Roman guy on a chariot, he has an orange shirt on that arm there. So put that back. And then these little bubble things. Right? Which ones did I redo? Well, you probably saw earlier. It's that one, and that one. So, painted the white in, and then when I had the yellow ready, I added a little bit of yellow, like they've done, and then went back with the black pen and put the lines back in similar to how they had it. Now, is that exactly how they had it? It's probably a little different. Nobody's going to know, people. No one will know. Okay, so we are down to two colors, light blue and red. So let me see what I got in the way of a light blue. folks, so we've done what we're going to do. This is our after, before we've clear coated it though. We still need to clean it up just a little bit, some of it, because once you put that clear on, it stays like that. I like our little man. He came out pretty good. What do you think? Can you tell where the messed up spot was? I think it looks pretty good. That was the main spot that had problems, right? But all of this was pretty rough too. Not much better, in my opinion. We basically ended up repainting all 4 of those little arrows because the color match wasn't perfect, so I just went ahead and redid the whole thing. Now you'll see there's still areas that aren't right, like that. You know, I'm just going to leave that. I'm not trying to make everything perfect. Just spending a few hours getting it the way it needs to be, where it looks a lot better. All the major wear is gone, and now it just looks like a play field that has wear, but it's you know, basically appropriate for its age. This game's from 1978, I believe. And it's a Stern. Boy, I love these Sterns. The old ones, I love them. I like the new ones too, but I really like the old ones. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put some clear coat on it. Like I said, we just use a spray paint rattle can. I'm just going to spray a little bit of clear coat over the parts that we painted with acrylic paint, because if you don't, as soon as you wax it or anything, that paint will come right off because it's water-based. As soon as anything with water in it gets on that, it will completely come back up. So to lock it in where you can't simply wipe it off, you have to clear coat it. So we'll do that, and then we'll start putting it back together, and we'll see how the thing, how it turns out. All right, folks, so this is what we ended up with so far. What do you think, Joe?
Looks great.
Joe says it looks great. That's all I need to know. Joe, can you tell where I painted it? You weren't here.
Well, I kind of knew where it was, but if I didn't know, I couldn't tell.
So here's our little guy that we repainted. What do you think, folks? I think that looks pretty good, all things considered. Pretty good color match. What do you think, Joe?
Perfect.
And then here's our little drop target guys. Drop target things. You can tell it's been done if you know. It doesn't look as crisp as the original paint. I don't know why I never get the lines straight. I put them on there by hand. You'd think that they'd go straight. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay, so we're going to clean it up a little bit more, and then we're going to, we think that the displays need resoldered. Wow, they look crazy in the camera. They're not that crazy, people. They look like they're like rippling and everything. Here in person, they're not doing that. I wonder if it's actually doing that on the recording, or if it's just doing it on this camera, the display. Okay, so we're gonna mess with that, and then also we're gonna check all the light bulbs and make sure all the light bulbs work. So we'll see if we run into any other issues. Okay, so Joe has pulled out one of the displays. Which one was this, Joe? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
2.
2. And so we're gonna check for bad solder joints. They all work, but every once in a while they get a little flaky, right?
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. Let's see how close we can get. Boy, you can see it pretty good there, can't you? See how the ones on the end are the ones that are screwed up. So those 3, and then the 3 or 4 down here. It's always the ones on the end, because whenever you pull off the connector, you kind of pull a little weird. All right, so we're going to resolder those and pop it back in, and we'll do that to all 4 of them. Okay, folks, we got it all back together. We had one little light bulb out, like we said. A good-looking little game. I think we've got We'll have to look into getting him a decal or something for the control panel. I mean the apron here. The problem with these is that if you get them wet, like if you try to clean them with anything, the ink just comes right off. Real common. So that isn't perfect, and there's a little bit of the yellow that wasn't perfect on it, where somebody had touched it up. But all in all, it's a good-looking little game. So we'll do a separate video playing it. Now, do you want to hear what this old Stern soundboard sounds like? 1978, folks. Are you ready? Are you ready? This is Stern's first soundboard. I love it. I'm a sucker for these old Sterns. Alright, so that's just a taste. Leave your comments down below. Let us know what you think. Make sure to give us a thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. And did you know, people, that we have another channel, my brother Donnie. We work on pinball machines. Donnie works on old vehicles, old buildings, things like that. We've got a couple old buildings in a small town near here that we're fixing up. So we can help revitalize downtown by renting them out. So go check that out, and we will see you on the next video. Hope you enjoyed it. Stern's Wildfire.